He's nibbling. He's nibbling. Well, this is relaxing. He's gone. No? Might have lost him. There's no fish in Alaska. Gold prices are approaching all-time highs right now, and the biggest investors on the planet, they want in on the action. But to do that, they're gonna have to go further and further afield to find the truly big returns. So today we're gonna go to one of the most wild places on the planet, Alaska's Aleutian Islands, to check out Heliostar exploration. I've been a lot of places in the world, but almost nowhere as wild as this. After a quick layover in Anchorage, I'm flying west, into the Aleutian Islands. Jutting out into the Bering Sea, this island chain is quite literally the edge of the world, the last remnants of that ancient land bridge connecting Asia to the Americas. Remember when Sarah Palin said she could see Russia from her doorstep? She was probably standing here. First indigenous tribes and later European fishermen, people have lived on this island for millennia, living a lifestyle inseparable from the sea. Today, the region's economy is almost entirely supported by the fishing industry. But Unga, an abandoned island just a short boat ride from Sand Point, holds a secret amongst its rolling waves and mountainous coves. A deep history of gold mining. 4 hours from Vancouver to Anchorage, 3 hours from Anchorage to Sand Point. Where are we right now?
Well, welcome to Sand Point. Yeah, undoubtedly this is a remote spot, but it's amazingly accessible. You can land a 737 on the airstrip over there. You can get an Amazon delivery. People here shop in Costco and Seattle and get it delivered each week. We're here because we think that there's a huge potential for a new gold mine.
We're in Sand Point. Which island are we on now?
So we're on Popov Island.
And where's Unga?
Yeah, a couple of miles to the west here is our main project, the Unga Island. In fact, the town of Unga was built on the back of the gold mine, or largely on the back of the gold mine.
What's the history of these assets?
So the Apollo mine was Alaska's first underground gold mine. It was a high-grade mine. It produced for about 30 years from the late 1880s to the early 1920s. But they shut down because the mineralogy of the ore changed and they didn't have the technology. We'll show you the old stamp mill. We'll show you what we think is the potential to grow that.
Does that mean you know there's more ore there?
So we have these amazing records, these old diaries and reports, particularly from an old mine manager called Frank Brown. And so it's enough to tell us that there's a lot of potential, but it's not accurate enough that anyone's come before and done it. So if you look at some of our results this month and last month, yeah, there's definitely more gold.
When talking to the community, when interacting with people, are you guys getting support for the project, or are people apprehensive?
Sand Point's a fishing town. The community here live for fishing, and fishing goes up and down. They want some economic diversity. At the moment, if you don't fish, there's not a lot of opportunities for you in this town, and fishing has fluctuated. So if we can bring another angle for sustainable jobs to the community, that should be well supported.
You know, what's the goal? What are you trying to find here, and why do you think you're going to be able to do it?
So we think we've got 3 ways to win on this project. We just talked about the old mine where the old timers left material behind. We've also got a high-grade resource, nearly half an ounce resource. And then this is a huge district. There's copper gold targets, there's high-grade gold targets, there's bulk tonnage gold targets. So if you don't like high grade and you don't like upside, maybe this isn't for you, Jamie.
All right, fair enough. Our first stop is to the ghost town of Old Unga Village to speak with Amy Foster, a local resident who grew up here.
Unga was a prehistoric village, so the native indigenous people, the Onegin, the Aleut people lived here.
And then when was contact first made by the outside world, and who came first?
Contact in the outside world were the Russians that came over, and then eventually Americans and Scandinavians.
Where did you used to live?
Right up here. There was a store over here, there was a store here, there was a library, there was a school, post office,
Why did people leave Unga?
The economy has changed. It was a fishing community. The harbor here is shallow. The boats have gotten bigger, and the canneries were in Sandpoint, so the families eventually started, moving away.
How big of a role did mining play here?
Mining played a big role, during the late 1800s and early 1900s.
And is the view of mining from the people in the Aleutians in Unga, is it positive? Is it negative? How do people feel about that?
People are excited when they see companies coming in, hoping that, they will discover something and it'll become, something good. If people are working, they get a sustainable income, it is a positive aspect.
Do you think people will ever move back to Unga?
I don't know about the village right here, but I would love to. And I know there's others that would like to.
Can the mining industry ever truly return to Unga? Heliostar VPX Sam Anderson believes history is showing us there is more gold to be found here. Sam, what are we looking at right now?
We're looking at the historic Apollo mine. We're standing on top of the old stopes and looking down to where the miners at the turn of the last century pulled out 130,000 ounces of gold. This would have been an underground gold mine down the hill. They had adits that accessed this.
And when was this last mine? When did they leave?
They left at a couple of different points. So they shut down just briefly during World War I. And then they mined up through about the 1920s, and then they tailed off.
So that was 100 years ago.
Yes.
Why come back now?
We've got this great legacy from a man named Frank Brown, who came up here in the 1880s as a miner, became the mine manager, and he's left us this incredible record of drawings of the mine and his thoughts about what was happening, what had happened to the veins. And so we're stepping back and returning to those records and building off of those.
Drawn by the person that obviously understood this deposit better than anyone else.
Absolutely, the guy with the longest history on this deposit.
I've been to mining projects all over the world. There are plenty of 100,000 ounce projects, 200,000 ounce projects. What makes you think that Apollo and Unga in general has the scale that's required for a profitable modern mine?
The Apollo is just the tip of the iceberg. We've got so many other prospects inside of this large land package that we can go explore, and that's that we don't have to hit a 1,000,000 ounce home run with Apollo. We just need to build size potential and then continue to add in from all of these other prospects that we have inside of this large land package.
To gain a better appreciation for the project's scale and history, Sam takes me to the ruins of the old Apollo mill. We're basically standing in a pile of rubble here. So what is this underneath our feet and all around us?
This is the Apollo and Sitka mills. To stand here 100 years ago would have been absolutely amazing. You would have had a massive mill building behind us. You would have had a train line that ran out across towards the Unga village. We would have had an overhead sky tramway that would have carried ore from the Sitka mine.
It reminds me the way you tell it of like a Deadwood. Some like town that sprouts up in the middle of nowhere off the map, and people come to make their fortunes and set up here.
As you read through Frank Brown's diary, that's exactly what it was. This guy sets sail from San Francisco in the 1880s, jumps on a schooner, is seasick for a week on end as he sails up here, pulls into where the Unga village is now, gets off the boat, comes over here, shoots a couple of rounds into the face, expanding those exploration tunnels and taking ore out, and then in the evenings would have walked back over to the village and started to build his house.
And where was that ore coming from?
Mining would have originally started at the Apollo stopes with the free milling gold, and all of that 130,000 ounces would have run through the stamp mill. And as they got deeper, they got into what they were calling the complex ores. That's the base metal rich quartz veins that had lead and zinc along with the gold, and that would have been where they started to get into problems.
How does that impact you guys? Or is this something you're going to be able to recover?
Frank Brown has told us the amount of vein that he believed was underneath our feet, and modern flotation processing allows us to recover gold from the ore where the old timers couldn't.
And what are the results turning up from your initial drill campaigns?
Well, the results have been really, really encouraging. We've drilled a hole just a few feet away from us here that came back with 3 meters at 88 grams per ton.
Okay, so you're hitting ore grade mineralization here. Were you getting those same sort of zinc and lead numbers that you anticipated as well?
We've hit zinc and lead numbers in a number of other holes around us, and it's a matter of putting all of this geologic story together.
And does that mean essentially building scale?
It's a matter of understanding the meaning of that high-grade hit, where that high-grade gold vein goes in 3 dimensions, and building out that scale.
If we can believe Frank Brown's journals, Heliostar may have the land package necessary to both find and build a modern-day mine. But in Alaska, nothing gets done without the support of the locals. I head out on the Rita B with John Foster, Terry Sanders, and John Galvins to get an idea of what it's like to live as a local fisherman here at Sandpoint. What are they fishing for with that? Is that cod or is that salmon?
It's all salmon.
Salmon, yeah. Out here on the water, I am truly blown away. One of the things I love about this industry is it takes you to places that almost nobody ever gets to see. I just recorded, I don't know, half a dozen sea lions jumping off a rock into the ocean. You get to meet the friendliest, most interesting people. You get to see spectacular places. This is something that makes the mining industry so exciting and, you know, something I'm constantly falling in love with. This is a beautiful part of the world. But what does it mean for an economy to be dependent on just a single resource like fish? As warmer seasons begin to push fish further into the Bering Sea, is Sandpoint only another 40 years from looking like Unga Village? John Foster has fished here all his life, but even he says new opportunities are essential.
Fishing is what brings the money in to the community, and then you have the, you know, the little side businesses and things, you know.
Do you see a lot of people coming into fishing that don't have fishing backgrounds, that's fathers or grandfathers weren't fishermen? Like, do guys like me ever just go and buy a boat, buy a permit, and like try to do it?
Yeah, there's a few. They start out set netting just because it's you know, cheapest to get into. You know? You can get a permit for about $50,000 or so. A seine permit, I think, is at maybe $150,000. But the permit is only a small piece of it, and you got to have a big enough boat. You know, a $50,000 seine. Power skiffs are pushing $200,000 now just for the skiff. Some of the boats you see in the harbor are in the $3 and $4 million range now.
So you're looking at $3 to $5 million just to get started, kind of by the time.
Yeah.
But they're obviously making money, I guess. I assume.
Yeah, they're making money. Last year wasn't very good at all. Actually, last year there wasn't very many salmon. There wasn't much in the way of cod.
How old were you when you started?
12.
12.
I mean, John up there, I think he started with his dad when he was 6, you know. You don't see the kids anymore stepping in and taking over much anymore, you know. But like my kids, Kyle, he fished with me for a long time, but I made sure he went to college, and he got a master's degree in business, and now he's running the Aklutna Corporation in Anchorage now. So fishing is you never know. I mean, it's always good to have something to fall back on, like the mine or something, or whatever, you know.
Do you think people will be pretty happy to see that open again?
You know, I think so. There might be some of the older people that would, you know, might not be too happy about it, because you know, they really don't like change too much. They don't want to see anything happen over there, but I think most people, they're fine with it, you know.
Unlike my hosts, my fishing career has been pretty damn unsuccessful to date. Today was no exception. However, back at port, I had the chance to speak with Joy Huntington, a community relations expert working with Heliostar. She believes local participation is essential for both communities and companies. How important is community relations for a project like this?
It's absolutely critical. So a project can have all of the best features and even be determined to be economic. But if you've left the community behind and you haven't brought them along the journey with you, and they don't have any support for what you're doing, then it's really not going to be successful. The fact that we had a well-attended community meeting this early in the process is unique and amazing. And not everybody invests that time and energy into building a strong community relations program.
Do you think communities like this can survive and maintain populations without mines or businesses or other things coming in to provide those other opportunities?
Well,
or can fishing do it? I don't know.
Providing diversity and also year-round opportunities for people would really help to, I think, solidify the future of the community and keep people here that might not be interested in fishing.
Yeah.
I think that's important for people to have different options.
Yeah.
And when you have people from the area that care the most about the environment, taking the jobs in like the environmental side of things, you know, that's like the best of both worlds, because they get to be the ones making sure that the water quality is maintained and things like that. So I think that's kind of a best case scenario.
Charles has one last spot to show me on Unga, and it's a very special place. Charles, where are we right now?
So we're in the northwest part of Unga, well away from our claims, but we're up here because there's this petrified forest. We've got stumps of giant redwoods.
This is the kind of redwood we'd see in California today, right? But on the tip of Alaska.
Correct. Imagine this as a temperate area that grew large forests, very different to today.
So, I want to take a few minutes and talk for a second about what the future of Heliostar is. We've seen a lot of interesting things on this trip. We've spoken to the community, we've seen the projects. Where is Heliostar heading over the next year?
Our key goal is to define 1 million ounces and the re-rating that comes with defining 1 million high-grade ounces of gold.
What do you guys have to do to actually make that happen?
We just have to expand on the resource and the discoveries that we've made. We also have a giant land package. You've seen 250 square kilometres of prospective rocks. And so we've got so many targets that have just never been explored.
Is that not overwhelming for a small company to tackle these problems?
Clearly an opportunity if you have a strategy. And we have a clear, methodical strategy to work through from early stage to resource.
And how are you going to bring in the capital to execute on this?
I think show people the opportunity and the return that you get. I'm lucky enough to have been involved in these in the past, and there is significant wins to be had by doing this.
Part of the reason I wanted to come on this trip and talk to you today is, I followed your career for a while. You've worked with some of the biggest, best-known mining companies in the world. You've been involved in multiple discoveries as both a geologist and a VPX. But this is your first crack as CEO, really. How important is this to you?
Incredibly. As we talk to our team, and we want to build a real company. We want a company that initially restarts the mine here, makes money, and most importantly, we've got a really burning desire to be a successful and respected company.
And what do you have to do to make that happen?
I think we have to treat people well and be very professional in what we do. And that's not just technically, that is environmentally, with the local communities, and also financially.
All right, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This has been a great site visit, truly the edge of the world. I thought that was going to be a problem coming into this, but Unga turned out to be really accessible by water. Charles has created a great team. They're surrounded by a really strong community, and they have a special project. Massive upside, past producer. Every resource investor needs to take a look at this. Pretend like I know what I'm doing here.
Crushing up massive amounts of rock. So
I feel like I'm in the Sound of Music here. These rolling green hills. Spiting. Nibbling.
And this is the Sandpoint Mayor here.
They call that Cross Island, and when they were having wars and stuff, the Aleuts that lived in Unga,
So they'd hide out there,
that's
basically.
where they'd stay up there and no one could get them off that.
You've been up there?
Yeah, I've been up there, yeah.
Wow. Who was chasing you?
Oh, yeah.